Hey, what's up? My name is Tyson Brown and I want to welcome you to Tyson's Fitness Tips podcast. This is Australia's top health and fitness podcast to help you lose weight, look good with your shirt off, feel confident in your body, and finally achieve the goals you want with your health and fitness. So 5 days a week, I'm going to be giving you top information from myself and also from leading experts in the field so you know everything you need to do to get in the best shape of your life. From nutrition to mindset to workout, everything is covered in this podcast and you need to go nowhere else. So like I said, it's going to be 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, in your ears with quick, actionable segments that you can implement straight away, because the most important thing is that you can put these things into play. Also, if you listen all the way to the end of the episode, you're going to get 2 special gifts that you can download upon listening to it. So make sure you listen all the way to the end to get those free gifts, okay? So let's get into the episode. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Tyson's Fitness Tips. Now, today's guest is the most popular guest on the podcast so far. I knew I had to bring him on for, I think it's our 3rd, maybe even 4th episode. Have to double check on that one. But again, it's Mr. Mega Man Marty. Marty, I'm so glad to have you on today, mate. How are you doing?
Hi, Tyson. Doing really good. Thanks for having me back on. I've been pumped about this one for the last little bit here, so should be really good.
Yeah, and the best thing is we've got another topic that we've planned out to come even in the future, so you're going to be on here a few more times I can see in the future, which is bloody awesome.
Oh, it's going to be great. I'm telling you. You got it.
So, mate, what we were talking about earlier before we jumped on the podcast, what are we going to be going over today? What are you thinking?
Well, there's these concepts out there about fat loss being fast or fat loss being slow, and the debates that have kind of raging on between them, because it was always kind of seen that you should take a long time to lose fat because you don't want to get any kind of metabolic damage or metabolic impairment, and that slow and steady wins the race. Well, depending upon certain cues, depending upon certain, we'll call them nuances or your skill levels of where you're at, it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. You actually can use not necessarily fast fat loss, but we'll call it that for the sake of this, but it's showing in science to be healthier, if you can believe that.
Really? What is I guess you've been a little bit more clued on than I am, so tell us a bit more about that when you say healthier. So
if you were to be dieting for, let's say, because I'm here in the contest prep world for the most sake, if you were to be on a 16 to 20 week contest prep diet, that is about 16 to 20 weeks in a deficit. Doesn't necessarily mean you're in a huge deficit. You could be in a little one. Doesn't necessarily mean you're doing tons of cardio with it either. But still, regardless, you are below maintenance for 16 to 20 weeks. And that can have a cumulative effect and give you something called metabolic adaptation. In other words, you are not burning as many calories at rest. Your RMR goes down, and that can affect you. Some people will do this for, we'll say, months on end, especially if you are a heavier person. You start out, let's say, 300 pounds for a male, 250 pounds for a female. You've got a lot of fat to go. And as we were just talking about before we kind of rolled on here, is that you can see some pretty substantial weight loss with fat loss at the beginning, something akin to 5 to 10 pounds for your first couple of weeks or whatever, but that does slow down. But yet you still have, on a 300-pound, mostly obese man, you still have, 100 pounds of fat at least on there. So and if you're looking at kind of the average that you should be coming off in that weight, once you kind of hit the stride after your first little initial drop there, you're only going to be looking at about 2 to 3 pounds a week at the maximum. And so that's going to take you some time. And so is that wearing and tearing on the metabolism? Is that wearing and tearing on emotional and hunger cues? And the answer is yes. Actually, I was just at a conference here in Edmonton in October a little while ago, and there was a gentleman there who had done, I want to say 20, 25, maybe 30 weeks of dieting, and he believed he was 350 pounds or something like this, Tyson, and he got down to about 180 to 200, and they asked him, now, do you still have hunger like you would when you were bigger, 300, 350? He says, every single day. So there is a thing that's called reverse hunger adaptation. In other words, you do not get adapted to the hunger purely. You can end up staying just as hungry as you were at that 300 or 350. So this is what sparked the interest in looking into different ways than just taking this extended period to try to drop all of this weight so slowly.
You know, it's so funny you say that, because even though like I have never been super overweight, like even when I've dieted down to my leanest, like the hunger that I had at my heaviest I was still that hungry when I got to my leanest. And you know, it's a constant battle you've got to go on with, I guess, in a way, depending on how heavy you are, like the level of hunger you're going to have probably for the rest of your life.
And that's exactly it. I think this gentleman had lost it 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it was still there, still a constant struggle, still a battle. And this is one of the newer things we're seeing of why people will rebound. Why, if you look at people such as the Biggest Loser contestants, and why they do regain the weight, because the hunger is there, and you can only fight that for so long. It's almost like fighting having to go pee. You can only do it for so long before eventually you are going to have to pee, or you're going to urinate yourself. I know it's a little bit of a funny analogy there, but it is to that point. So, and then it's knowing when to properly give in here and there. So what I've been doing, and I'm definitely willing to give away quite a few of the tactics and the tips that I use for either my fat loss clients or my contest prep clients here, because I've seen it work so much better, and it actually will eradicate some of these negative consequences. Have you heard of any kind of the styles of dieting that you might believe I'm talking about here?
I'm probably going to say refeeds that come into play. Okay. Would probably be one thing I've heard. Also, I'm going to probably say if there's not refeeds, there's low calorie days and high calories days versus depending on your training. And I guess they're two of the biggest things that I'm thinking of so far. What have you got for us?
So you know what? Those are two very fantastic answers. So really quickly, I'll go over those. On the podcast that I host, we did one on cyclical refeeds. And funny enough, it was the most listened to podcast out of all of them. I had no idea why it would have been. But anyways, apparently this is such a very interesting topic for debate. So the definition of a refeed is a timed period of overconsumption of carbohydrates, or a set amount of overeating of carbohydrates. So let's say let's make it real easy. You're eating 100 grams of protein a day, 150 grams of carbs a day, and 50 grams of fats a day. And then you are lean enough to require a carbohydrate refeed. You could bump this up to something like 400 grams of carbs, or something like as many carbs as you can in 5 hours. And the whole point of this is to not only restart your body's natural T3, which is your active thyroid hormone, but you will go to sleep. Just think about turkey dinner syndrome. When you have a big friggin' meal, what happens? You get to rest, you get to relax, right? So that's what a refeed is. A refeed is not a cheat meal. A refeed is not just stuffing garbage into your face. That's more of we call it something over here called a shitload. So that's something you don't really want to be entertaining unless you really know what you're doing. But so a timed period of a refeed can work when you are lean enough, and that's the big asterisk that should be going around with that here. It's because and that was when I was kind of getting into the contest prep scene harder, was around that 2012, 2013, was everyone was saying, "Oh, I'm doing a refeed. Oh, I'm doing a refeed," and I was like, "What are you doing?" And they would be having like an extra 100 grams of carbs a day every couple of days. I'm like, "What? That's not a refeed," but because it's not enough to actually biologically and physiologically kick in the restorative properties of the T3 or whatever. And not only that, but if you are 300 pounds and you've lost 75 pounds, you're still 225 pounds. And I'm not talking some ripped bodybuilder. I'm talking someone who's been mostly obese their entire life. When you go to have that refeed, you still have all this body fat left on you that you need to get rid of. So all that's going to do is slow down your process. So if for the kind of the exact numbers, if I could give them to you, it's going to be around that 10, maybe 13% for males, and it's going to be around that 16 to kind of 20% for females before they even start needing that. And just really quickly, what comes some of the signs that you could, and please don't go off of solely one of these. This is not WebMD. This is not Google where you read one symptom and go, yeah, no, I got to have a refeed. No. You got to have quite a few of these in place. It would be something like you are chronically tired. Your lifts have just gone down the drain. You used to bench press 100 pounds. Now you're bench pressing 40. Your sleep sucks. Your mood sucks. You're not getting any better in conditioning. Your weight might actually even go up. this could be a time that you would look into implementing a refeed. Okay. So now the lower calorie days alternated with the higher calorie days. The guy that really proprietor this was named Eric Helms. I've got such a fanboy crush on Eric Helms here, Tyson. He's my favorite. I saw him here speak for the second time, and it was amazing. And he was the one that really turned me on to that you don't necessarily need just one big day of refeeds. You can have it turn into two, and it doesn't even need to be back to back. So funny enough, I just changed one of my girls' plans here for her show that she refeeds on every Tuesdays and Fridays, that she'll have extra grams of carbs then. And then on her Wednesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, Mondays, she has lower carbohydrates. And so why is that? Because if you were to give someone 2 days of a little bit higher food and feel more like a human, as opposed to giving them lower forms of food every day without necessarily feeling like a social human, that's going to kick in the emotional and the psychological, and that's going to have them saying to themselves, okay, I can do the 5 days, I can't do the 7. So there's a huge benefit for it too. So the ones that I want to talk about here, how to get fat loss happening fast, or how to get it happening, we'll say even more efficiently, is something called full diet breaks. So this is utilized a little bit by the contest prep scene. It's still really not. So when I say contest prep here too for your audience, this is generally anywhere between 12 and 20 weeks. It could be longer of a fat loss phase. Now, depending upon your genetics, depending upon what class you're doing, if you're doing bodybuilding, or if you're doing women's physique, or if you're doing bikini, and depending upon your starting place, you might not need the 16, you might need the 12, or you might need vice versa. But what you can do is, for a gen population, is do something along the lines of 8 weeks and 2 weeks. This is very arbitrary, but you need to kind of see where the client is at, where yourself is at, and just diet relatively hard for 8 weeks. Why 8 weeks? Because anyone can do 8 weeks. And when I say anyone, it's that anyone that's motivated, anyone that wants to get in there and do it, because they see an end, Tyson. They're not just saying, okay, we're going to diet until the 300 pounds come off, because what if that person doesn't get this initial 10-pound loss? What if they don't get this initial 7-pound loss? They get 3 pounds, then 2 pounds, then 2 pounds, and now there they are 3 weeks in and they're still 290 something. That's going to be demoralizing. That's going to be depressing, and that's where we're going to see the F this, I'm not going to do it anymore. However, if we go a little bit more aggressive and we drop the calories down to nothing crazy, we up the cardio to nothing crazy, and all of a sudden we see this 10, 7, 5, 5, 4, 3, and we do that for 8 weeks. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, we either give them a week or two off. And what I mean by off is like bringing them back to maintenance. And then not only will they be able to do that, but then they're eating at maintenance. They're being happy. Their body's kind of recharged. And now after that 2 weeks, I can tell you, I want to say at least 85% of my clientele that has done this, that has worked successfully with, they go, okay, Marty, I think it's time to go again. I want to get that fat loss again. So now we go back into the 8 weeks, and now they start seeing this tremendous fat loss, whereas before they would have either slowed down a bit too much or they would have given up.
You know, it's so, I like how you've given a bit of background on all those approaches, and like, you know, because everyone's going to be very, very different. But one thing you actually said that really stood out is like, we talked about this earlier, I was like, okay, the first week or two, you're going to lose a big chunk of weight. A lot of it's going to be water, like GI food in the GI tract, feces, like all those things. You're going to drop a fair bit of weight, but you can't expect that week by week by week. Like if you're expecting like between 5 and 10 pounds a week, you're going to lose weight very, very quickly, and you know it's going to be like all the weight comes off, and everyone would be lean if that happened. So that's not going to happen. So, like you said, Marty, like depending on how much you weigh, like 1% of your body weight is what I like to tell people. Like that's probably like the maximum limit you would be looking for to lose weight week by week. Would you agree?
Yes, that's the maximum, especially for someone obese, kind of that 1 to 2%. But you got to think 1 to 2% when you're getting up there is not chump change. It's going to be a lot of weight. You're right.
Yeah, but like people have these like, I don't know where this comes from. Like they think that they should be losing, 5 or 10 pounds a week. It's like, that's not realistic, and you shouldn't want that, because if that's happening, you are losing more than just fat. You are losing a lot of, like, you're losing the muscle mass you have. You're losing a lot of other things, and you don't want to be risking health for short-term results.
One of the best quotes I ever saw on this, Tyson, was just some random guy in some Facebook group, when they were talking to him about fat loss, he said, well, I spent the last 10 years of my life getting fat. I can spend at least at least half of that getting in shape. And I was like,
Boom.
holy crow, is that ever frigging awesome? Because exactly, this does not happen unless you were born fairly heavy. You're like myself, you were obese. The weight creeps on. I think they say it's something like a pound or 3 is what people will gain just over holidays and whatever. So even say, let's say in 10 years you gained a pound. That's 10 pounds of fat. 2, that's 20 pounds of fat. 30 pounds of fat. So if you gain that in 3 years, you had better give yourself a year and a half to get that off. But no one does. They expect, what is it, 3 weeks? We got 21-day challenges. We got 13.5-day challenges. We got 7.36-minute boot camp abs, and we still can't do it. But I loved how he said that. He said, well, if I've spent that time given, I'm going to give half of that time off. So you're absolutely right that we lose that expectation of that. And the best analogy that I've ever heard about that is a toilet paper roll. Hopefully you've heard this here too, is that if you are, let's say 400 pounds, this is one of those huge double roll paper towels. What happens when you turn off one roll? Not that much. What happens when you turn off 2 rolls? Not that much. Let's say you start getting down to the lesser sheets on the roll. One sheet of paper towel will almost be 2 or 3 revolutions. So that's the way you need to think about fat versus weight loss, because that once you start, you get out of that 10, 5, 3, whatever pound weight loss, you fighting for those 1 or 2 pounds, they're going to be not only pretty much pure fat if you're dieting correctly or whatever, but you're going to notice a 1 pound change on a 120-pound girl versus a 1 pound change on a 200-pound male.
Oh man, that's so true. It's funny, another thing, like, when we look at giving people, let's say we give them their macros and calories, and you're like, okay, I'm going to give you, like I gave a female client the other day, you can have 2,500, because she's overweight, and I'm like, you can have 2,500 calories a day. She goes, oh wow, that seems like a lot, doesn't it? And I said, yes, it's a lot of calories to have in a day. And I kind of made the analogy to her. I'm like, you're telling me that 2,500 calories is a lot, but you don't realize how much you've actually been eating in the past to get you to where you're at today. Like, you're eating a lot more than 2,500 calories if you're that heavy. And when I said that to her, she goes, oh, I guess you're right. And I said, yeah, of course. And then her being able to eat that much food, she actually texted me the other day. She goes, I can't believe I've lost 5 pounds and I'm able to eat so much food, just being conscious of what I'm eating. I'm like, and it really is. Like, the more you can eat and get away with fat loss, the better it is for everyone.
Yep, absolutely. And that's those, I call them the genetic wonders. Like, I have a girl right now, and hi, Nicole, let me bring this up for you while I got you on in front of me here, because this is probably the highest I've ever had a female. I want to say she's around 30 eat in my entire life. And this is something that you shouldn't go off of. And the reason why I'm going to bring this up is because for a long time, people were saying, don't go underneath. Funny enough, I just did a podcast on this with my buddy here, and people will say, don't go underneath 1,500 calories. Don't go underneath 1,200 calories. That is so frigging relative. What if this is a 5'10" girl that weighs 180 pounds? Okay, she probably doesn't need to go underneath 1,500 or 1,200 calories. But what about a 5'1" girl that's getting in shape for bikini that is 110 pounds? Now you're trying to say like that this is a governing rule of kind of this magical situation, and so no, you can't do that. So it's just something that's frustrating that I still see here a lot. Okay, here's her update here, Tyson. I just put into her main plan, so on all 5 of your training days, she is having 120 grams of protein, 385 grams of carbs, and 70 fats. And then on one of her non-training days, she's having 100 grams of protein, 480 grams of carbs, and 70 fats as her refeed, on top of an already high 385, because that's what she needs to do to gain weight. Gain weight, because she's trying to gain muscle.
That is impressive.
Yeah, and now me saying this is not me saying, hey, come coach with Marty, because all of his girls get to eat a lot of food. If anything, it's a little bit painful for her. But here's the caveat. I don't gain weight. I gain fat off of that kind of weight. I don't need that many macronutrients myself, and that's why figuring out your RMR, your resting metabolic rate, and your basal metabolic rate is so key for this. It's even if you are at a part where you're obese, because the way that I like to say kind of what you were saying there is that obese people outside of, yes, there is some relatively new science that Dr. Spencer Nadolsky was coming out with that will tell us that there is some kind of genetic defect in terms of metabolic fat loss. But for the most part, Your bigger individuals are bigger individuals because they eat that way. I remember watching some kind of documentary on TLC, and the gentleman was drinking 8 liters of full sugar Coke a day with food on top of this. And I think the person was 500-600 calories, because exactly like you said, there's no way that they're not moving around and they're keeping that weight on. It needs gas. That person's metabolism is on fire.
Yeah.
Like so any kind of change will happen then too. And so that's why, let's say they were eating 6,000 calories and now you put them on 4,000 or even 3,500, it's still very healthy. They're not going to miss out on any micronutrients, but man, are they going to start seeing the weight just fly off of them. You're not kidding.
Yep. And it's so funny you say that, because I didn't realize like the amount of food you can. So for me, like, let's just talk about the Christmas time. I ate a fair bit of food. I put on a couple of kilos. Well, actually, you know what? I'd probably say from about November until February, I've put on about 6 kilos, right? Not the healthiest way. I put on some muscle, but a little bit of extra fat. But just realizing how many more calories you actually just burn during the day now that you're at that heavier set point, it's like you can, like, that's a lot of, like, when I think about it, I'm like, wow, I can, like, 3,000 calories a day to maintain my current weight. I'm like, that is a lot of food. And so if I went down to 2,500 calories, that's still a fair amount of food, and I'm still able to lose weight off that.
Yep, exactly. And your body, I did. So I'll give an analogy here for you. There's something that I like to call the alien, and I like to call the normal. And I've had 3 of my girls go through this where they went on vacation over Christmas. Is that if you've been eating well for a year, 2 years, 5 years, and obviously the longer that you've been eating well or eating at maintenance or fat loss, the much more inclined your body and your brain is going to think that you eating off or you going off at Christmas is something called the alien. So it's going to go, okay, there's some chocolate cake. Okay, there's some chocolate. This isn't right. This is alien to us. This isn't normal. Let's just going to stick it out for a bit. So let's say it even is a week or two, especially if you're advanced and you've been doing a fitness nutrition plan for 5 years, you've been busting your hump in the gym. As soon as you get back after those 1 or 2 weeks and you nail your plan for 1 or 2 days, guess what happens? All of that weight flies off of you because your body is just so ready for it. Now, if you are just starting out a nutrition plan and you've done it for 2 months and then you try to go and have the Christmas dinner, that's not the alien. The whole meal plan thing is the alien, and the body's going to go, oh, thank God, when you go back for Christmas dinner, and it's going to put all the weight back on. So it's one of those things that you can call it a super compensation. You can call it being ready for it. It's just the body is much smarter than we friggin' think in holy cow, many ways.
Absolutely. And it's so funny you say that, because I actually told a couple of my female clients around Christmas, I said, you know what? Eat at your maintenance calories. We talked about this, take a diet break. And they actually freaked out, like, oh, I'm going to put on weight. And it's funny because they ate at maintenance. They, went up by a pound or 2, which is obviously just water weight. And as soon as the Christmas period finished and they went back to dieting, all of a sudden, now they're less stressed. They've actually started losing weight faster because they've had that just a little maintenance period. Nothing crazy. It was 2 weeks. And they go back down. And it's like, you needed it. And people don't realize you can't be in a calorie deficit 52 weeks of the fucking year for the next 3, like a year or 2 years, whatever it's going to be. You've got to have that break in between to just give yourself, like, not even just physically, but mentally too. Because mentally thinking about, I've got to be in a calorie deficit every single day is very, very draining on yourself.
It's very, very draining on your physical self, and it's extremely draining on your mental and emotional self, because that is what we're told to believe. And I love saying this. This is something I've been really looking into in the last 2 years. And I like to ask people questions and say, hey, have you ever heard of it been called mental eating? And they go, what? No. I'd say, okay, have you ever heard of it being called emotional eating? And they go, well, yeah. I'm like, exactly, because you can't think your way out of friggin' food. So it's not only reining in the emotions kind of like that too, but being able to dive into why am I doing this type of thing, right? Like, why did I get started on this thing, and kind of go all the way into that. Why do we think we always talk about in fitness, like the pain points, like the whole remember why you started. Remember, it was because you wanted to get in shape for your children so they had a good role model. Maybe it was because you wanted to win your local bodybuilding show. Maybe it was because you were sick of being bullied or teased around, or you were the only large one in your family or something. It doesn't really matter, but getting down to always maintenance, like you said, or even below maintenance, it will just do so much psychological harm that you'll think that's normal And there comes the metabolic adaptation. So what metabolic adaptation technically is if, let's say, you burn around 2,000 calories a day, I'm just picking a random number, and then you slowly whittle yourself down and you're eating 300 or 500 below your maintenance or whatever, that 2,000 will turn into 1950, then maybe 1850, then 1650, and then 1500. And if you don't take specific periods of time to push that back up, either to maintenance or by a refeed like that, you will slow down to that rate, and you will not be able to get the same results as this. And this is why you see, especially females, men, I'm not saying you don't do this, but I've trained enough women that they see this, they go, Marty, I'm now doing the same amount of food in the same amount of cardio, and I'm not getting the results. How come? And I say, when's the last time you took a damn break? And they go, break from what? I'm like, a break from either the gym, a break from your life, like you mentioned about coming back from vacation and not being stressed. Now they're actually excited for the gym again, and they'll kind of look at me with a blank stare and say, but that's what I do. And no, that's not it. And the actual direct term is called a full diet break. Now, this does not mean go hog wild. This means eat 300 to 1,000. Yeah, I'm going to even say it, eat 300 to 1,000 calories above. Go to Mexico for a week and just stop thinking about it. No guilt. Don't go to the gym. And then when you come back, it will be like holding on to like a sack of water that will just gush off of you, because your body will be so ready. Not only that, it will thank you, because now you got rid of that metabolic adaptation. Now you're back up to that 2,000 and you're ready to kick some ass. The best way you can think about that from a cardio standpoint, I just have a girl signed up now that's really into Spartan races. Do they have those over there?
Yep.
Exactly. Spartan race, Mud Hero, Tough Mudder. So she wants to do some kind of more of like the running and the jumping and being more actually physical, as opposed to just vanity metrics, which isn't like a lot of my sporting. And so I said, guess what we're going to have to do? The exact opposite of what it is for a bodybuilding show. And she said, what's that? I said, we're going to have to get good at cardio. And she said, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, from a fat loss standpoint, you never want to get good at cardio. You want to be terrible. You want to be that 400-pound man that has never hasn't even walked around the mall before, because him walking around the mall for 20 minutes is going to burn more calories and be more effective than you sprinting on the treadmill for 60 minutes because you're lighter. Because that's going to, like, and there's one of the bigger misconceptions too, is that cardio burns all these whopping amount of calories. Get out of here. Those machines, ladies and gentlemen, the whole you put their hands on for the heart rate monitor, if the heart rate monitor is even friggin' correct, they do not burn 800 to 1,000 calories. I remember there was a little tiny girl that used to work at my gym, 5'1". She said, I just burned 1,000 calories on the stepper. I was like, no, you didn't. So the maximum we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be about 200 at the minimal if you're really good at it, and maybe 300 at the maximum. So that's a slice of pizza. So once you get good at that cardio too, so now you're going to have to do what? More cardio, faster cardio, or longer cardio just to get to that same thing. And here, ladies, again, you get shortchanged. You guys adjust to cardio so much quicker than men. It's just the way that it works. It's just genetic. This isn't my opinions. This is science. So for you to start out already at something like 5 times a week of cardio for 30 minutes, what's going to happen next? 6 times, 7 times? So that's why nutrition is so key. You can't outrun or can't out-train a bad diet, but then again, you can't out-cardio and out-diet your metabolism. You're going to have to give it some time so it adapts back in the proper way.
So true. I actually didn't know that women adapt faster. That's a good thing to know.
Yes, they sure do. And it sucks between, not only they don't have the testosterone of a male, they don't have the muscle mass of a male. They just, so because like if you look at some of the older direct studies, it would be they have weight training, like resistance training individuals, they have boot camp training individuals, and they have boot camp and diet individuals, and they have resistance training and diet individuals. And they had them all double-blind studies. The men that just altered their training, they saw fat loss and muscle gain. The women that just altered their training, they saw nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. So if you don't have some nutritional backup, and so ladies, when you're thinking I'm full of shit here, ever know a friend or ever hear of a friend say, hey, I get too big in the gym, I get too bulky, can we not do a lot of weights? Why do they say this? Because Fat is on top of muscle, because if you're overeating about 300 to 500 calories, you are going to put on some muscle.
Yep.
And what's that going to do? Make you look more husky, make you look more big. Sorry, ladies, you do not have the ability to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you do, please come train me, and I will pay you all of my money. And you give me your secret jacked plan. Okay, that's what it is. You're going to have to implement some form of nutritional strategy as well.
Yeah. It's so funny you say that, because every time I get a new client, she goes, I don't want to get big and bulky. I just point them straight to me, because I am not a big and bulky guy, and I've been training for a long time. And I'm like, look, if you can do something that I can't, well, then I'm going to blow myself away from coaching you through that, because it's not like, it doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to get big and bulky, and I've got a lot more testosterone than what a female does.
Yeah, and I bet that my kind of spin on that is if they say I don't want to get big and bulky, I'm like, oh, can you try? Because then you can show me what I haven't been doing right. Yeah, that's it. So I'll make one last kind of final disclaimer on that too, is that if you do see, ladies, a woman out there that you would consider is jacked, is shredded, is a female bodybuilder or whatever, grab someone that's close to you at the gym and ask them kind of what it is. Sometimes it could be potentially illegal steroids. I'm not going to bring up this topic, but I am going to say, if you see someone that is an unnatural shape and an unnatural leanness, sorry, you cannot achieve that unless you are on some kind of performance enhancing drug.
Pretty much, if she's got a six-pack, you wouldn't be wanting fame. Like, that's not saying that all girls who have six-packs, but if there's a woman you look at and she is like fucking more shredded than like 90% of men competitors, you know that there's something else behind it.
Let's even, I know this is out of the scope of the podcast here, but let's really quickly go over kind of like we'll call it the glaring signs. Is girls don't usually have jacked shoulders, let alone ripped and lean shoulders. So that's one. Girls usually don't have separation in their quad muscles, and that's kind of the way to look at it. Now, yes, you can have a six pack. Yes, you can take a look at some of the natural bikini models, and they look great. But as soon as you start seeing, like, especially the shoulders, just start to really pop and get jacked, and then like when the quads, it's called the feathering, you can start seeing all four quads start to split into different muscles. That's when I'd start going, unless they're about 100 pounds, then okay. Just like I know some really little 5'5", 135 pound dudes that are just shredded, and they might look big, but then you stand next to them and they're the size of Tyson. No offense, Tyson. but that's what I mean though, right? But then the weight's not there. So there it is. You can be an anatomy chart, but you're not going to be big and be an anatomy chart.
That is so true. And it's just funny, just going back for a second when you were saying about when people go, oh, I burned so many calories on the stepper or whatever it is. It's actually funny, because what I've been doing is comparing people. Like I've been putting my heart rate strap on, and what I'm doing is measuring the calorie burn on that and comparing it to the treadmill. And it's funny, the treadmill is telling me that I'm burning 200 or 300 calories more than what I actually am using a heart rate strap. That is calibrated for my weight and my height, and even heart rate straps don't have 100% accuracy. They're more accurate than obviously a piece of cardio equipment, but if that's telling you're burning 200 or 300 calories more than you are, that's why it's so, that's why people go, can I eat back what I've burnt? No fucking way. If we give you a calorie or a macronutrient perspective, you stick to that. You don't go, oh, well, I burnt an extra 300 with cardio. It doesn't matter. You did not actually burn that much more extra.
No, exactly. That's kind of the way that a lot of these work too. So for the Fitbits, for the and I do go off of heart rate just because it's a gauge I don't mind. But here's an easy way to think of why not to go off of just heart rate, is that if we were to take the heart rate of NASCAR drivers and see how their heart rates are going, they're not losing fat. Or we go to a movie theater, we scare the crap out of a whole bunch of people. They're not losing fat just because now their heart rates are jacked through the roof. Or else, so there's that busted. So the problem with that too is that if they're gonna, let's say, dial into your body or whatever, and you're gonna have your heart rate and you're gonna do your blood pressure or whatever, you're still not measuring metabolism. We have no idea how to measure like that. That's why there was the jacked farmers who had abs that they were in grade 10, and you did everything that they did, and you did not have jacked abs because you don't have their genetics and you don't have their metabolism. There's no way for us to jam something into your body along the same time as you're using these magical heart rate monitors to say, oh, so your metabolism is at 3,500 calories? Cool. So take them with a grain of salt. Use them the way that they should. Like, I still do like people using steps either on their iPhone or on their Fitbit or whatever, because that will tell me their daily activity. But that's still not going to tell me their metabolism. I've got nurses that will walk 15,000 steps a day, and I've got someone that will be like us and work at home and burn 3,000 calories, or sorry, do 3,000 steps a day and get more fat loss, just because our resting metabolic rate is bigger, and or our genetics are just better, or our thyroids are just better. Not saying go get your thyroid tested. Please do not say, oh, I knew it was my thyroid, Marty just told me. No, please don't do that. I'm saying that just because your steps are high does not mean that you're going to be out burning someone else's fat.
That is so true. And it's just funny, like, you guys, you can't pick something and be like, it's my metabolism, or it's my thyroid, or it's this, or it's I've heard fucking people asking me about lectins lately. It's like, no, you're just over consuming calories, okay? And what you need to do is you need to focus on being in a deficit, like we've talked about. You aim for, like we've probably said, between 12 and 20 weeks. I like to give clients about, a 16-week good diet, 2-week break, or 2 weeks to a month to see how they feel, then get back on track. And it's just like, man, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you have a quote-unquote slow metabolism or a fast metabolism. You have to be in a calorie deficit no matter what.
Yeah, you got it. And that's just it, is if you are one of these people such as myself that was stuck in the category of a slow metabolism, get over it. I know that sounds so harsh, but get over it. Maybe you're a better talented at painting than them. Maybe you're a better pool player than them. Maybe you've got better heart genetics than them. So, and it's like the whole slow metabolism thing. There are ways around it, like you said, for sure. And just so something, and you don't need to do this at all, Tyson, just as I was listening to you talk there. So with the whole 16-week diet, try giving it to them a little bit more aggressively in 8 weeks and see what they say. Say, hey, we could diet you at, we'll say 2,000 calories for 12 weeks, or we could diet you at, 16 weeks, or we could diet you around 1,500 for 8 weeks, and then with a 2-week break, see what they say. Because here's the trick, and I know that you know the trick. It all depends on that person's genetic makeup in terms of what they want to do. Are they able to do 8 weeks? Are they able to do 16 weeks? In my world, for competing, there's so many people that start and they get 4 weeks in and they go, and this is 4 weeks in out of something like a 16-week, and then they're like, I can't do this. And it's like, what made you think you can? And it's like, it's no offense to any of them by any stretch, but sometimes you're picking the wrong sport. Yeah. That was like me in wakeboarding. It took me 23 tries to get up my first time wakeboarding. I thought it was fun, but I was like, I don't think I'm going to be the next professional wakeboarder.
It's so true. We're all different, right? Like, some people are sprinters, some people are marathon runners, and it's just like, and I guess it all comes down to trial and error too. Like you said, like, some people, if you think, all right, I'm going to be better doing it 8 weeks, but you end up, like, after 8 weeks, you're like, fuck, I'm just going to eat everything back, well, then maybe you're better with a slower approach. But if you're someone who's like, man, I'm not seeing the scale move as much as I want this done faster, then maybe you're better for an 8-week approach. But it's all about trial and error. You're probably not going to nail it on the first go, but you're going to learn something about it, and then you can apply it for your next set of dieting.
Document. If I have clients that have done multiple shows with me, I have everything saved, so I know what their peak weeks looked like. I know what they were at 10 weeks out for food, what they were doing for cardio for food, so then I can see what tools we use and see if they've changed or not, to see if they've been in a better starting point or not. Because like every single new client intake I have is, what diets have you done in the past, and how severe are they? Because your diet history. Because let's say about 5 years ago, Sally, who was 200 pounds, did a 13-week ketogenic extreme crash diet and went from 250 pounds down to 130 pounds. And now she's back up to 230 pounds. But she doesn't tell us that she lost those 80 pounds that quickly. Her metabolic adaptation and things could be still damaged from not doing that correctly. So we got to know that. And also, during that time, was she doing any cardio? Was she on any harsh fat burners per se? Because your diet history is going to tell you everything.
So true. And like I said, everything you can track, do it. Like, if you can track whether, like scale weight, measurements, energy, all those things, and if you can just document that over time, you can look back and think, okay, did this work? Did this not work? Because whether you work with a coach or not, it's good to have those, like, all those data points there to reflect for yourself, because the data's not going to lie. It's going to tell you right there. You should not be short-term dieting, or you should try a short-term diet, because it's going to be right there, set in stone, because you have properly documented it.
Absolutely. And even if you want to be, we'll say the lazy documenter is just write down 12 weeks of ketogenic diet, 30 pounds lost, didn't come off of it right, gain the weight back in 5 weeks. It doesn't need to be every single journal of MyFitnessPal. It does not need to be every single workout to the T. That's bodybuilding stuff. That's some crazy people like me stuff that have journals everywhere. So we're not trying to scare you off and say you have to have this either. I'm saying anything you can document and you can either show to your next coach or to yourself or to look back on, that'll give you just even more knowledge about what not to try again next or what to try next.
For sure. So, we've talked about different types of strategies we can do. We've talked about what realistic fat loss should be. We've talked about, making sure you're actually focusing on being in a calorie deficit, and whether you are a slow metabolizer or a fast metabolizer, you've just got to be able to accept that. And then we've talked about documenting. So, is there anything else you think we need to be covering to let people know about when it comes to fat loss, Marty?
Is that the... How do I word this?
While you're thinking, I want to say that they should go and actually listen to that cyclical podcast that you talked about, because I like that approach. Like, it works for some people. Again, this won't work for everyone, but having something there as a tool in your toolbox to try is a great way to see if it's actually going to help you stay on track after the diet's done. Because the biggest thing is you've got to be able to do something that's sustainable enough for when you finish the quote-unquote diet that you don't bounce back like we've talked about, or you don't go, oh, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I can't eat the exact same thing. Like, you've got to know what you're doing now is going to be able, you're going to be able to stick to it in the long run.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you said that. That's bang on there. Perfect. So what I'll say then is find a really good way to be able to assess yourself. And if you can't find a really good way to assess yourself, this is why coaches like myself and Tyson are out there, is even get their coaching process. Like, find out what questions do I ask, work with them for a month or two, work with them to get past your sticky points or whatever, so that you know those tools for next time. So one of the worst things you could possibly do is get down to, you'll say you've lost 50 pounds and now you've been stuck at these 50 pounds for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. You might not only get so frustrated you go backwards, but you might never try again there. And it's one of these people of appealing to authority. Think of you if you're building your dream home and you're stuck on the fancy windows and you don't know how to put in the fancy windows, and like, this is going to be a great analogy. So you're stuck on the fancy windows and now you're trying to stay in your dream home, but then it starts snowing or it starts getting really cold and you've got nothing to hold that out. You're probably going to move out of the house, even though you've made this super nice fancy house, but you just wouldn't hire someone to help you with the friggin' windows. Hire someone to help you with the damn windows and all that. You go, oh, and now the next time you could probably know how to put in the damn windows. So that is the whole thing behind this. You don't buy plans, buy coaches. Don't buy plans, buy coaches, like, especially the ones that are competent, the ones that have been doing it for a long time. Not only will they show you pretty much exactly what to help you, but you'll be able to ask them the questions that you had from the last time and say, hey, was this too fast? No, why not? Was this too slow? No, why not? What are the next steps? And then they will work with you, because this is one of the funniest freaking professions on the entire planet. And I'll use my buddy Daryl. He was building his dream home, and he said, Marty, I got this really fancy tile off of eBay and I saved 75%. And I said, oh, that's wicked, Daryl. Do you know how to put tile in? He goes, no, but I'm going to figure it out. It took Daryl 35 days to put the tile in, whereas it would have took a professional 3 days. And if he had just worked at his $150 an hour massage job, he would have not only have paid that out, but he would have had a better putting tile down and wouldn't have drove his wife crazy. So that's how to think about it.
That is such a good analogy. Fuck. But we make the mistakes and we definitely learn from them for next time.
But that's it. People think that they can do our jobs, and you know what? There are lots of apps out there. There is MyFitnessPal. There are lots of great workouts on bodybuilding.com, and they will take you from A to B, maybe even to C. But if you want to get to D to E to F, you are going to have to hire a professional. And for some strange reason, why people think that we are apps blows my mind. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I like to refer to myself as the fitness GPS, because I will detour, I will reroute, I will tell you when things are going there. But you can buy plans off of the internet, but you cannot buy coaches that are not a human. Sorry, I've seen the things like Avatar work, which is like a automated, we'll say coach or a program, whatever. They're not the same. They're not going to ask you the right kind of questions like someone that Eric Helms would, like someone like Austin Stout would, like someone that myself or Tyson would. They're not going to be able to get down and do it there for you. My definition of a trainer versus a coach has been the exact same for a very long time, is that a trainer does things for you, a coach does things with you.
Ooh, I really like that. That is so powerful.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, Marty, I think that is actually a great way to finish this one off. So, what I'm going to do is you're going to send me the link for that podcast. I'm going to put that podcast in the show note because once you finish listening to this, you can go and listen to that, kind of get some experience around it. And then, like we talked about, guys, you don't have to go this journey alone. There are so many coaches out there, myself, Marty, other people who want to help you achieve, but more importantly, keep what you achieve. And that's why we're there. That's why we're here to help. We will give you all the information we need for free, but you have to go and implement it. And a lot of people won't implement it without skin in the game. And more importantly, we're going to take a lot of the guesswork out there for you. So if you do need help, make sure you reach out to us because we are willing and we will help you.
And there's one last thing I'll say about that is do not sacrifice your health, ladies and gentlemen. Do not eat dust. Do not go on some kind of crazy grapefruit and protein powder diet only. And before you know it, talk about losing all your gains, but now you might lose your health. I've seen it.
So true. No celery juice, no fucking detox, none of that stuff.
You got it, brother.
Nothing quick comes. Nothing easily attained is going to be able to be kept in the long run. Just think about that.
Yep, you got it, man.
All right, Marty, I really appreciate you coming on today, mate. I'm so excited to have this one out. It'll be out next week. And
awesome.
Guys, thank you so much for listening again. And until next time, speak to you soon. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. So now you've listened all the way to the end. That means you get some free goodies. So what you can do is you've got two different options, or you can take them both. I've got an intermittent fasting cheat sheet and a high protein 20 recipe meal guide designed specifically for you in your situation. These meal plans and this intermittent fasting guide is designed to help you burn stubborn belly fat and get in the best shape of your life. So all you have to do is go to the show notes, click on the download link, and they'll get sent straight to your email address. It's as simple as that. They're completely free. They're going to help you transform your body. So go to the show notes now and download your free guide, and I'll speak to you in the next episode.